I went to Birmingham myself, and I investigated and thoroughly examined the two folios from every point of view to determine whether it is, as they said, the oldest fragment of the Quran ever found. But the fact turned to be otherwise. I examined the parchment first. What sort of parchment is that? What sort of ink is that? And what sort of script is that? And above all, I wanted to know if the parchment was a virgin parchment and what sort of substances were used to cover this parchment. And I came to the conclusion that the surface of both folios were thoroughly covered with Arabic gum to start with. The second, what I observed and I realized that the two folios were not a virgin parchment. They were palimpsests, and this was not reported at all in the report published by the media, and they made fuss of it. If a palimpsest was used, that means it contained a text, and then the text was washed out. Why it was washed out? Either the scribe committed some omissions or scribal mistakes. And then when collation was performed, or comparing, let me say, comparing either with his memory or with the text already in front of him, he discovered that some words were missing. Then the only way he could do that to discard this folio with the other discarded folios. Then consequently somebody else wanted to write something or to write a copy of the Quran. Then he found this discarded folio. Then he took it, he washed it out thoroughly or not thoroughly. If it is not thoroughly, we can see the traces of the first layer easily under an X-ray or any technical instrument. But if it was thoroughly washed out, then it is very difficult to know what sort of text was written first in the first layer. It was washed out thoroughly, but some traces we could discern here and there of an old text. But what sort of text, it is impossible to know. This examination and investigation of the two volumes led me to conclude that those two folios are not as old as they claimed them to be. The red ink used in the folio, the dots used between the ayahs, and the separation of they call it the ornaments and the decorations used as separator between the surahs, and the use of golden ink here and there. All those elements lead or indicate or lead us to believe that the two folios don't belong to the 1st century of the Islamic era, but to the 2nd and the beginning of the 3rd century. That is to say, it is not the oldest at all. Your question about whether this palimpsest was older than the script, not necessarily at all. Because if it was older than the script, then we could see that in the structure of the parchment. If it was old, then the structure is a bit loose. If it was new, it was not old, then the structure is solider than as it was old. And from this we know that the parchment in both were not so old as they claim, and they were washed thoroughly. And here we come to the point of how they were washed. And I'd explained this thoroughly in my own book, not by using water, because we use the term wash to wash the parchment out. Washing here does not imply water. No, and paleographer knows precisely what does mean to take out all the ink out of the parchment without leaving any trace of the ink. Total close. The most important thing to know is the result of the carbon dating. The result of the carbon dating is dictated by the organism which is in the parchment. And what I mean by this, the material used in coating the parchment. In this way, the coating of the parchment plays an enormous role in determining whether the result of the carbon dating is correct or thrown into disarray and doubt. For instance, the two folios of Birmingham, which I observed and examined thoroughly, was covered by or coated by Arabic gum. And before that, other substances were used as well by the scribe, which has a great influence on the result of the carbon dating. And this is why I doubt thoroughly and deeply the result of the carbon dating, which they announced in their report. Because the substances used in making those parchments played an enormous role in deceiving all the instrument used in determining the age of the parchment. It is not only the Arabic gum. The Arabic gum is a recent coating. It is not an old coating. It is the recent coating, because it's still shining. If you direct a light on it, it shines. That means it's new. It is the recent. How recent, this we cannot determine. But the substances used in making the parchment itself, we don't know exactly, but we know from the manufacturing of parchments in the East, they use quite a lot of material which is not used in the West. And those materials of substances, they determine the result of the carbon dating, either positive or negative. But in this case, it proved beyond any doubt negative. This particular one, it came out Egypt, directly out Egypt. It was bought by Mingana in 1936 or 30, I think 36. Anyway, 1 year before his death, he bought it from the antiquarian Eric von Scherling. We say in Dutch Scherling, but in German Scherling. He was an antiquarian in Leiden in Holland, where Mingana purchased this 2 folios from him. But this Eric got them from his agent in Egypt, among other manuscripts. So the provenance of this particular fragment, as well from the mosque of Amr ibn al-As, or what we call it, Fustat. No doubt at all. It is not older than what I said. Whatever the outcome of the carbon dating, and whatever the other scholars would say, I still maintain my conviction that they don't belong to the time of the Prophet, or to be specific, to the 1st century. No. And I said no and no. First Caliph ordered Zayd ibn Thabit to collect all the various scattered ayat and surah from various materials and from various individuals. He lived, or they lived, in his time. And then he put all those he collected in certain sheets, and those sheets were entrusted to Hafsa, the daughter of Abu Bakr, and was kept in the custody of Hafsa until the time of Uthman. But I have to point out in this respect that the Quran was not, in the beginning, depending on written form. No, it was on memory. It was memorized. And this we have evidences that it was memorized before it was written. In the Ramadan sessions, for instance, some of the Sahaba were entrusted to lead the prayers before Uthman, in the time of the second caliph and the first caliph. But the Taraweeh sessions were in the time of Umar radiallahu anhu. It was led by Sahaba, and they read it out of their memory before it was written. And later, in the time of Uthman, they decided the whole text must be written, it must be put in a written form. And then Uthman asked the same chap and the same Sahabi, Zayd ibn Thabit, to sit down and dictate to few individuals. The Caliph chose them to write down the recensions, which we call them now the Uthmanic Qur'ans. And they were scattered. And Ibn al-Najjar, one of the most famous Baghdadi historian, he was asked about the Madani, the copy of the Uthman in Medina. He said it is scattered through the time and obliterated, and nobody knows what happened to it. And this is the gist of what he said. I say we don't have any folio, either or Qur'an, either complete or incomplete, that belongs to the span of time between 40 Hijrah and 250 Hijrah. Not a single folio is dated at all. The reason is very simple, which was not tackled by anyone who worked on Quranic palaeography, and that is the scribe. Every scribe had enormous veneration for the Quran to add his name as scribe. So all those fragments, they don't have colophons, neither the name of the scribe at all. And this is the reason why a scribe would not put his name in a Quran he already transcribed or wrote. That's the reason. We know that Uthman ordered the commission to write down few copies, 4 or 5 copies, and he dispatched those copies into various cities of the Islamic empires. And then copies were made out of those. The Quranic copies, we don't have them, and they did not reach us. But no original Uthmanic Qur'an or called recension, one of the Uthmanic recensions ever reached us. And what they believe that those kept now in various places like Hussein, like Topkapi, there are copies or copies of copies. They were ascribed or attributed falsely to Uthman out of veneration and out of respect. Not this opinion of this hearsay was not based actually on facts, based only on hearsay and rumors. Well, in fact, there is no defective script at all in Arabic. I mean, it's a borrowing from Latin. Scripto defectiva. Scripto defectiva means the Oriental languages like Hebrew, Syriac, and Arabic, which has no dialectical signs. And it's not defective. But this is a term used mostly by revisionists to mislead some of the Muslims, to show them that, look here, your script is defective, but it's not defective. The Arabic script, when it was written down without harakat, without dots, without anything, it was normal for a Muslim who knows the Quran by heart to read it without having a harakat. And the harakat came later, when non-Arab embraced Islam and they couldn't read it as the first generation of the Sahaba used to know the Quran by heart. And that is the reason why harakat was introduced in the end of the first century and the beginning of the second century. Some Orientalists, they do that out of ignorance. They say that the Quran was derived from Aramaic or from already existing text, and therefore the Quran is human made, is Muhammad's made. Let me be specific. But they forget the fact that Aramaic is the mother of Syriac, Arabic, and Hebrew. The similarities between all these languages very clear and known, exactly as the Latin language is the mother or the origin of most of the European languages, and therefore you see the similarities well known in those languages. So what is the argument? The argument is already preconceived to devoid the Quran from its originality and to attribute the Quran into already non-existing text, which they think it was part of the Quran. And this way, it is a way of denying the revelation as revelation, denying the message of the prophet as a prophet. It is a preconceived idea and nothing else at all. No, the early Qurans were not arranged according to surahs. Not at all. Because there was no divine rule. As al-Baqillani said, there is no tawqif and there is no divine rule to arrange the Quran according to God's order. And this is why we see in the Quran of Ubay ibn Ka'b and the Mus'haf of Ibn Mas'ud, they are different order, different arrangement of the surah. The same with other Quran manuscripts, with other parchment. We have it already in Sana'a in other parts of the world. And the arrangement of the Quran of nowadays is done according to the length of the surahs, not according to a divine rule. This is why. So the difference of arrangement was already known from the beginning. In the Mus'haf of Ubay ibn Ka'b, who died at 32 or 33, Hijrah, it is very early, even in the time of, in the process of writing, of putting the Quran into writing. So there was no divine order to arrange the Quran according to any order. And that is the reason. And in Nadim and the others, they mentioned that clearly, that the Mus'haf of Ubay ibn Ka'b and the Mus'haf of Ibn Mas'ud, they are different in arranging the surah. It is clear. Well, it is easy. If you want to apply textual criticism to the Quran, go ahead. I have no objection to that whatsoever. But how you do it? According to what? In Christian and Jewish tradition, we have already material. We know that discrepancies found in the Bible, in the Old or the New Testament, they were studied, they were criticized, they were registered. And thousands of discrepancies found in both books and studied by Jewish and Christian alike. So with what you compare the text of the Quran? With what? If you have another text allegedly called Quran, here we can apply the textual criticism. And if this does exist, then they are most welcome to do it for us, not even for themselves.